Okay, the idea of this podcast is to talk to a lot of people in the design field and design adjacent fields, just trying to deal with what seems like even faster than normal paces of change and technology changes, and just hear how you're thinking about the current work landscape, how you're thinking about the practice. Community was a particular interest. So I thought I'd start off with talking a little bit about Fractionals United and wanted to hear why you wanted to start that community. Did you have a very specific vision, or was it just something that started off small and kind of grew?
Sure. So honestly, I built it because I needed it, which often happens, right? I have been doing fractional work before it was called that. I've been doing it for about 8 years. Went full time with one of my fractional clients, which sometimes happens, but once people and systems were in place, they didn't really need a full-time COO, nor could they afford one. So I came back in the beginning of 2023 to a very different fractional landscape than existed 2 years prior to that, which was the last time I had been actively looking for fractional work.
Mhm.
And I was dismayed by how different it felt and also like lonelier and harder, which I understand now, but I didn't then, right? It
Or the
was like,
differences?
well, for instance, Upwork was no longer a viable source of leads at all. Like Upwork sucks. It's a race to the bottom. Whereas in the past, I actually got a lot of leads through Upwork, believe it or not.
Mhm.
Because like I'm an operator, I'm not a salesperson. So it was really hard figuring out how to find the work and where the work is and how to deal with this. And during COVID, I had joined some really great operations communities. So I
Mhm.
was like, okay, where are my fractional peeps, right? Like, where are
Yeah.
the others so I can learn from them and figure this out? And I couldn't really find what I was looking for, like community for the sake of community. There were
Mhm.
a couple of communities on the other side of like courses or paid firewalls or other things, but no fractional community. So I had that idea January 7th. That evening was like Googling, looking, right? Couldn't find it. Looked up at my husband. I'm like, I don't know. Is this the thing I do? I don't know. Let's see if there's interest. So I literally just decided, okay, let's see if there's interest. I created a quick landing page, a free Slack, messaged a bunch of communities, put it up on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
It was an experiment. By the
Mhm.
end of that first weekend, I had over 50 people. Everybody was like, yes, please, yes, please, yes, please. In a couple of days, we'll be at 18 months. And I didn't check what we're at today, but we were like at 10,200 something yesterday.
I mean, I joined just a few months in, and I think it was at 6 or 7 thousand already. And I was just like, what is going on here? Because being in the product world, it's like, we have this thing, now we need to bring people and we want to create community. And so it's really interesting to see where there's just like a natural community waiting
Yeah.
to be connected. And then you have done some really clever things about productizing it and providing a lot of valuable services with like the directory and the partnerships. The lunch and learns have been so interesting and so full of information. So yeah, it's been really interesting to see kind of the community development first. Was that something that you had a background in, or was it just something you were, again, proceeding from your own needs?
Yeah, I've been part of great communities, but this is the first time I'm running one, founding one. So when I realized this was the thing that I was going to do, I quickly tried to learn as much as possible, as quickly as possible. So I actually reached out to some of the community builders or organizers of the communities I belong to try to pick their brains. I joined Rosie Land. It's a community for community builders. It's
Mhm.
one of the ones out there. I kept hearing about it. So I just tried to learn as much as quickly as possible. But I do think that it's funny because first off, I'm an introvert, which is a challenging thing. And if this were in person, I would be like under the desk every day myself. It's been challenging even online, but yeah, that's number one. So that's been interesting. Number two, I say that it's the first time I built a community, but the truth is I've run meetups and other things, which are kind of communities, smaller scale, right? So in some ways, it's not the first time I've brought people together along a shared something or other. It's funny, I didn't realize or connect the dots till well into this journey. And I'm like, oh, right, I did that and I did that. And those were kind of communities, but I didn't think of them
Yeah.
as communities, right? They were book clubs, they were other things. They kind of were communities, smaller scale.
Yeah.
And I also think that being a leader, there's a lot of commonality between being a leader and running a community, which has made it easier than I anticipated because leadership is this fine line of you have to support and enable and listen and nurture all the things that community needs, but also no leader gives their team everything they want when they want that, right? Because they have the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
And I joke with people that it's my first time as CEO. So on the one hand, I have zero bosses, which is great. But on the other hand, I have 10K plus bosses, which isn't so great. But it's not like I give them everything they want because I listen to members, I pay attention to trends, but
Mm-hmm.
they don't see the bigger picture that I do. So I
Yeah,
have to carefully gauge what is worth doing, especially with a free community and limited resources. I
right.
have to be very selective on what I do and don't do and focus on and don't focus on.
Yeah. And so, how are you managing that roadmap, for lack of a better word? How are you listening? It's a big community at this point, which makes it hard to really hear and balance all the feedbacks. Is there anything in particular? Are you just, again, doing what you can, or is it, do you have a backlog? How are you thinking about the actual management of it?
So I try to keep things really simple. I personally have one overarching focus for every year. You have goals and you have other things, but like my one focus for 2023 was growth. My one focus for 2024 is self-sustaining. I want the community to be at the point where it is self-sufficient and funded, right?
Mhm.
Everybody on my team has one focus. Tammy is the community manager. Her focus is engagement and community, as should be, right? Will, our head of partnership, he's helping me with monetizing, right? So everyone has a single focus. And
Mhm.
obviously, underneath it all, the community has to provide value. People have to be engaged. That's a given, right? But I really believe to keep things simple, there has to be this one focus. It's a roadmap, it's a gauge, it's a litmus test, whatever you want to call it. It really, really helps. Everything I consider is in line with that.
Mm-hmm. And is it just the two team members besides you? And did they come on pretty immediately, or when did you decide it was time to bring them on?
So Tammy was the first that I brought on. I think she joined in March. So around the 3 month mark. And it got to the point where it was just, we were growing too fast and it was just impossible for me to do everything on my own.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of automation and things behind the scenes,
Mm-hmm.
but it still needs somebody paying attention. And I can't do that 24/7 with a global community and do
Mm-hmm.
other work and things, especially since the community is free. I have to do other things.
Mm-hmm.
So I brought her on around March. She's part-time. She started out at 10 hours. Now she's 20 hours. Will is our head of partnership. He and I knew each other for years, and we've always looked for an opportunity to work together. And when I started thinking about sponsorship, I was doing my best, but I'm not a salesperson. I'm an operator.
Yeah.
I can optimize in my sleep, but I hate selling. And I don't remember how we reconnected on this, but after being on one sales call with him, I told him afterwards I should never sell again. Because it's natural to him, right? The joy and ease he brings to this, as
Yeah.
opposed to me pushing it uphill. It's just like,
Yeah.
oh my God, the dichotomy.
Yeah.
So he came on, and then Will actually runs an apprenticeship program. So I brought on an apprentice, Marco, and when he was leaving, I realized that I needed to replace him. So now we have Ray as a part-time community assistant.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. It's just the four of us with a community of 10,000 plus.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's just Slack is the core thing. Then Coda for the documents and the directory and things, Zoom for the webinars and things, and then the website, I guess. Anything else that tool-wise has been really valuable?
Well, we use Luma as the events calendar, which
Oh,
is
right,
nice.
right.
It's got a nice UI. There are tools on the back end, like I use Zapier and Make for a lot of automation. I use Atomic for community metrics and sequencing and onboarding. Stripe and Buy Me a Coffee. But yeah, Slack, Coda, and Zoom, I guess, would be the main ones.
And then zooming out a little bit to thinking about the state of work and seeing all these consultants slash fractional people, there is some nuance between the terms. Maybe we can go into that for people that aren't familiar with this term. What's the difference between a consultant and a fractional person?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest difference is that a consultant is brought on for a project, even if it's a long-term project, and they're external, whereas a fractional is a fully embedded part of the team meant to be long-term. And if you think about it, the only true difference between, for instance, a full-time COO and a fractional COO is they're part-time. There's a community member, his team doesn't even know he's fractional. That's the key. Not to say that that's necessary, but he only does 2 clients at a time and his team doesn't know he's fractional. That's how he chooses to do it. But
Yeah.
that's just to illuminate that there really is no difference. You have a seat at the leadership table. You are on the org chart. You have people reporting to you. You are accountable. You are responsible. You can represent the company. None of that applies for consultants. They're meant to be external, doing X and then moving on. Whereas a fractional, it's not about a project deliverable, it's a job description. It's long term.
So it is giving more flexibility to the fractional person, obviously reduce costs for the company. Any other core differences?
I think that the biggest difference is if you're a small business or a startup, you may not necessarily need someone at our level for 40 hours. There isn't enough work. And yes, you can't afford us for 40 hours either. Like in the early days of the community, we had a conversation. I personally had a lot of instances where every 10 to 12 months as a W-2, I would actually get let go, promoted, or left because I got bored or ran out of work. And I thought it was a me thing. And it was very validating having this conversation in the community, realizing it wasn't a me thing, it was a competency thing. If you're hired full time and you're good at what you do, there isn't always 40 hours left of work to do once you do the thing you do, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot of waste out there because people are so used to like W-2 full time, especially when you're a leader and not doing the work and you're just like putting the things in place, strategizing, leading, ensuring it gets done through your team. Chances are you don't need 40 hours, honestly, unless you're a huge company and there's constantly things going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think we sometimes just absorb this 40-hour pattern like it's physics or something. It's like, no, it's not the law of gravity. There's so many other options, so many different relationships we could have with work. So it's
Yeah.
really interesting to see that this is actually better for a lot of different companies and people. If anybody out there is curious about this as like an executive looking for their next role, do you feel like they could just jump right into fractional and it's just basically part-time what they were doing before? Is there anything else they would need to know before being able to do a role like this?
I would say that you should have done the role full time before you try doing it fractionally. It is not an opportunity to promote yourself because think about it. You're expected to be effective in a fraction of the time. You
Mm,
can't do that. This is not the opportunity to figure things out, right? You need to know your stuff and well because you have to jump in. So first do the thing, ensure this is right for you and aligns with your skills and strengths. And
mhm,
then I would say it's really hard to find the work these
mhm.
days, right? It's still new. There's a lack of awareness. There aren't really like job boards. There is one being built, fractionaljobs.io, and Taylor is a partner of the community. And I think he's doing it well, but it takes time. So the biggest challenge right now is still finding the work. So if you can, I wouldn't quit your day job till you have a couple of things lined up if you are able. If you don't have a full-time job, I would consider other work, right? You don't only have to be fractional. I'm a workflow consultant too. You can do more than one kind of work, and that's part of the benefit of being
Yeah.
fractional too. You can decide what your work life looks like. So don't be only fractional. Do what you need to do to pay your bills. Know that it's going to take time. And then once you find the work, the challenge is to juggle doing the work plus the pipeline and running a business, right? You have to pay taxes because most fractionals are 1099, not W-2. So
Mhm.
you have to learn how to be in business for yourself. You're going to need an accountant. You probably should incorporate, even if just LLC, right? Like there's all these
Mhm.
things many W-2s don't know because they've never been in business for
Right.
themselves.
Right, right. That's definitely a lesson. I've seen agency owners or consultants say, yeah, they spend 30% of their week just on like biz dev, promoting themselves as a business. So that can be real unexpected that you do actually have to get your work done in much fewer days or much fewer hours than you might realize.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you've seen after a year plus with this community? Any other patterns in the work world, needs that you've seen, just or interesting nuggets that have come out of being underneath all this community?
Well, I do think that right now there's definitely more supply than demand because unfortunately there have been layoffs, right? COVID has made many of us reconsider the 9 to 5 or the way things were and don't want to go back. So I think there's a confluence of factors that are making leaders want to be fractional and to have more work-life balance and say in their lives and flexibility and all the things fractional allows. So the supply side is definitely growing faster than the demand side, unfortunately, which is making it more challenging. I do truly believe this is the way of the future because it makes so much sense for both sides of the equation.
Mhm.
So I don't think this is a trend that is going to fade. I think that this is just going to keep growing. And at some point, it will be the default for SMB startups and scale ups and
Mhm.
for leaders at a certain stage in their career, right? Because whether you're considering retiring, but you're not quite there, or you're at the point where you are experienced enough to be able to do this and want a little bit of variety, whatever the reason is, it
Mhm.
offers so much for both sides that I really do believe it is the way of the future. It's just, if you think of any big trend, it takes time, right? We see it from the other side, but if you're going through it, it feels like so hard and forever. Was it Seth Godin that called it the pit of despair? There is that period, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's a transition. My friend described the pandemic as like shaking the snow globe. A lot of things are kind of resettling and where things are not necessarily just reforming how they were before. How are you staying up to date on all of this? Are there any newsletters, people you tend to follow to think about work and leadership or community?
Community specifically, I am part of Rosie Land, so she shares things. Leadership, I guess I have been unsubscribing from a lot of newsletters and a lot of stuff just because there's so much noise out there. The only newsletter I religiously read and reread is James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits. I don't know how this guy puts so much richness into so few words. It is an amazing newsletter, and his book is awesome too, Atomic Habits. So I read, I skim well, the LinkedIn feed to see if there's anything people share interesting things in the community. I belong to Operations Nation, Operators Guild, and other communities,
Mhm.
generalist world. Things that are worth looking at tend to get a lot of likes and percolate up, and those are the
Yeah.
things I pay attention to.
That's all been super helpful. Anything else that's been on your mind? And are you available for consulting and things right now? Yeah.
Yes, I am looking for a fractional COO client. I focus on professional services community and SaaS and work well with visionary CEOs looking for someone to like run the business and focus on people, systems, communication. The company should have at least 10 or 15 employees for me to really be my best and most effective. I also do workflow consulting on the side, which is either automating, optimizing, integrating tools. If you're looking to pick a tool or help all your tools speak to each other, redundancy, things like that. My two tools that I tend to default to are Coda and ClickUp, but I recommend the tool that makes the most sense given the situation.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's all super good to know. Thanks so much for your time. This is a pleasure. See you in the Slack.
See you in Slack.
Okay.